What I would say with Legends of Low Code is that it opened my eyes to a whole lot of other opportunities. There are things out there as a clinician that I didn't know about that. I knew technology could help. I didn't know how technology could help, but I knew it could help. And so being a part of Legends of Low Code gave me an opportunity to see exactly how they could help.
To their disbelief, and in just a matter of days, the Salesforce Trailblazers created multiple low-code solutions for nonprofit healthcare provider Pacific Clinics. Legends of Low Code is a unique Salesforce Plus video series, and it amazed Eleanor Castillo Sumi, the SVP of Strategy, Innovation, and Growth, at how much the Trailblazer teams accomplished to create a better user experience for their customers. In this episode, we go behind the scenes as Pacific Clinic CFO Jason Gurahoo joins Eleanor to shed light on the technical challenges they face every day as they serve thousands of Californians across incompatible technology systems. If you haven't seen it yet, go to salesforce.com plus to watch Legends of Low Code now. IT Visionaries is brought to us by Salesforce Platform and Dreamforce 2022. Catch the news and insights coming out of Dreamforce this year for free on Salesforce Plus. Just visit salesforce.com/plus. Content will start rolling today, September 20th. Welcome everyone to another episode of IT Visionaries, and today we have two special guests. If you got a chance to see the Legends of Low Code on Salesforce Plus, you'll be familiar with Jason Gurahoo. He is the CFO of Pacific Clinics, and Eleanor Castillo Sumi. She is the SVP of Strategy, Innovation, and Growth at Pacific Clinics. They're both on the show today to talk about their experiences, what's happened since the show. Jason, Eleanor, thanks for joining us today on IT Visionaries.
Thanks for having us, Albert.
Thanks for having us, Albert.
Listen, we're pumped to have you guys on the show. For anyone who's listening right now but has not gotten a chance to actually see the show Legends of Low Code, let's do this. Let's bring our audience up to speed on what is Pacific Clinics and what it's all about. And then what we'll do is we'll dive into some of the technology and the innovation that's going on there to make the services better. So we'll start with Jason. For our audience who may not be familiar with Pacific Clinics, tell us, what is Pacific Clinics and what does it do?
So Pacific Clinics is now the largest behavioral health agency in the state of California. We recently went through a merger of two very large behavioral health agencies in California to become the largest.
As a merged organization, we provide behavioral, which means mental health and substance use services, to the full age continuum, so from 0 to older adults. We also provide foster care and social services, as well as educational services. So for example, we have a Head Start program, adult learning, as well as school-based programs.
That's awesome. I mean, clearly things that are in desperate need. Many people need this type of help and service. For our audience who may not be familiar, are the services you provide on a for-profit basis, or is Pacific Clinics a nonprofit?
So Pacific Clinics is a nonprofit. We serve the managed care population, which in California is one of the largest populations in the United States.
14 million.
Yeah, it's a big customer base, critical need. A lot of people that need services. It is a nonprofit. Now, historically, what we understand about nonprofits is that funds are limited, right? It's not quite the same as a private institution that's going to possibly have the investments to make in technology. We saw your team join us on Legends of Low Code previously. For those, again, that didn't see the show, it is a show where Trailblazers were there to help build applications and services for nonprofits to better improve the services that they could deliver. Eleanor, give us a framework of why you wanted to be on the show. And then I think we should best start there, because the world of nonprofits is always a challenge, right? Because you want to give good and there's donors giving to you, but at the same time, there's never feels like there's quite enough resource. And so when you have an opportunity to build innovation, it seems pretty cool. I'd love to hear how the thought process behind, like, hey, we're going to do this. This is what we need help with. And take our audience through that like needs assessment to say, like, hey, this is what we realized, and this is why we wanted to do the show.
Yeah, Albert, so you're absolutely right. For nonprofits to really think about innovation is really difficult. The way the structure works in California is that, for the most part, organizations like us get paid through what is called a cost reimbursed process. So we can only get reimbursed for what it costs to do our business. So anything outside of that, innovation is not necessarily reimbursable. However, a few years ago, when we were going through our visioning process and strategic planning process, we recognized the need to be able to transform. Given the changing landscape we knew that it was absolutely critical for us to transform our business. That's the reason why now Pacific Clinics today has been around business for over 155 years, is our ability to anticipate these changes and make changes accordingly. And I would say, we reached out to Salesforce, but it's gratitude to them for selecting us, because my understanding was that there were other applicants that wanted to be part of Legends of Low Code, and we were selected. So we are very grateful for that opportunity. It's also this partnership, that I have with Jason as the VP of Strategy, Innovation, and Growth. I needed a partner in thinking. I needed a partner to be creative in our finances. Not that he did anything illegal, but I needed somebody to think to think differently about how we build our business so that we can innovate, and how much risk are we willing to take. So he's been a great partner in all of this. And it goes back to, again, our strategy and our vision several years ago. And today, California is undergoing a transformative process with the entire system, as I mentioned, with 14 million people. So it's not just the state, it trickles down all the way down to the organization. So I think it's really critical for organizations to figure out how they can transform along with the larger system. And Salesforce is giving us that platform to be able to do that.
I want to dive into some of the things that you recognized and said, hey, we want help with. Just a quick little background from my knowledge, I always like to frame up for our audience. So when I was in grad school, I went to Emory University. I went to the School of Public Health. One of the things we talked about was delivering services is just half the battle. It's like the other half of the battle, the public realm, is like the red tape, the logistics, the administration. And so kind of like what you're talking about as data, systems of record, whatever, like the intake process, we understand that can be a huge problem. We know that the processing post service can be a huge paperwork problem. I remember doing studies where I had to put together and compile these data and statistics to validate the existence of the service. And he was like, oh man, I feel like this service should be widely recognized as necessary. I don't know why I need to fill this out, but it was done. You know what I mean? I wanted to kind of turn it over to you, Eleanor. Like where did you start seeing like maybe bottlenecks or opportunities, or what side of the process were you like, hey, we need more systems, we need technical help? Because it's one thing to provide the care. A lot of times that's what I was talking about. It's like the challenge providing care isn't actually delivering the care. It's all the things that lead up to it and all the things after it.
Let me give a preference to my background. I'm a clinical psychologist by trade. And so that's what I went to school for. And that's, what my livelihood should be. But I also have been very passionate about social justice. And so that's a population that we serve, individuals with a lot of these challenges in their day-to-day life. And like I said, there's so many things to take into account. And, Jason has been a really great partner. I'll have him talk about, the data piece from his perspective, because he has a background in IT. And so it really is that true partnership, right? I have content of how things work clinically and how we would like to have things work clinically. And he has the more technical piece. So between that, if you were to talk about people, process, and technology, I think, the two of us addressed all, a lot of that from inception, and just kind of had this think tank together. One of the things that Jason did in this whole process was to really tease apart what is now under new business. Historically, it's been under operations, and we learned that, again, with nonprofits, you have people who are really passionate about the work and really want to do every aspect of the work, but putting more task and responsibility on people who need to be focused on the day-to-day operations really takes away from, setting us up for tomorrow. So he created this whole new business structure. And part of that thinking is the incubator. And here I am talking for Jason, talking about his thoughts. So he can correct me if I'm wrong. And have the whole world hear that he's correcting me. He created new business where the whole idea is to be an incubator, to pilot some of these things, get it to turnkey operations so that we can get it to operations, and just keep that mantra. We are a large organization. We provide services across multiple counties in California. And so and the resources aren't equal in each county. So it's, what are the key essential things that you need? How do we build the infrastructure? And then how do we get it out there into the programs out in the counties so that we can just keep, the mantra of building, innovating, sustaining, and, and growing. I would say that's where it started. So under new business, that's where Salesforce has kind of, helped us to test how can Salesforce help us in what realm. And what I would say with Legends of Low Code is that it opened my eyes to a whole lot other opportunities. There are things out there as a clinician that I didn't know about, that I knew technology could help. I didn't know how technology could help, but I knew it could help. Being a part of Legends of Low Code gave me an opportunity to see exactly how they could help. And that's what the tears were all about at the end. Is I've been in this industry. I use my kids as a hallmark of how things are progressing. And, if my kids ever needed services, I don't think they would have had the services that, mental health would be as accessible as behavioral, physical health services. So at the end, I didn't expect to get overwhelmed, but I got overwhelmed because in less than 2 days, we had potential solutions, to help the organization. The implications were huge. And not only did we get potential solutions, but we got 3 wonderful options. And that's what was so amazing. The Trailblazers were amazing. They listened, they were empathetic. I mean, I felt like they were in our business because they came up with solutions that were really helpful. But that's what new business is all about, is testing all of these things. And now the rest of the organizations are coming to us to say, how soon can you get to the rest of us? And there's over 2,000 employees in the organization, and they all want to have their hands on Salesforce. And maybe Jason is closing his ears on that part, but
All right, listen, this is great to hear. This is phenomenal because, by the way, Eleanor, like the passion that you were just talking with, and like almost sound like emotional, like dude, we were able to deliver all these new services from this. This is amazing stuff. I want to dive into that, but before we do, one of the big roadblocks a lot of our nonprofit guests, CTO, technical leaders have is how do they get projects off the ground? Jason, it sounds like Pacific Links was already going after this like incubator model, new business model. We've heard it in private industry. I've never heard this in nonprofit, but this sounds pretty cool. Give us an idea. How did you incubate this as a possibility? Because it sounds like you've actually delivered or dedicated resources and people to try to figure out solutions to these problems. Tell us how this came about for you.
I come from for-profit. I spent most of my career in high-tech and consumer products. Incubator and how private equity comes in for startups is how you do business. Eleanor and her role of strategy and business development was really the key. So looking out into how do we really perform our mission? How do we really serve the underserved? And as Eleanor said, California is really changing the way it wants its population served, and it's significantly changing its fiscal structure. Nonprofits really have to be able to be strategic and be able to understand what the future is going to look like. I want to go back to how did we get to Salesforce, because it's funny. Eleanor and I both came to, we need a new tool for what we want to do, reaching out to population management versus the legacy way of dealing with, the counties and the state government's controlled way of getting referrals. The idea of, well, we really want to touch the population and serve the population. The issue was there's no tool. The volume of data you need to deal with when you're starting to look at population management.
Can you give our audience an idea of why it was so difficult? Because this population management data problem, sounds like a problem, but help frame up like how many records are you talking about? How is it being done? Was it like manually being done? I'd love to understand the problem a little bit more. That way our audience can get like in that mindset of where you were at.
It's really a front end issue versus a back end issue. In the legacy world, you get referrals. And so you get your client and then you can serve your client. All of the administrative requirements that come with doing that as you serve to get to your true work, which is in service to the client. That's the world we were are in. In the new world, you want to be looking at in the population of 100,000 in a small city, 100,000 that need service. And so you really have to be able to go look at that 100,000 potential clients and figure out who needs the service. And so that was where Eleanor went to, right? That front end, this is what we need to do. And this is what California wants. I had the experience of, in my for-profit world, I was in finance planning and analysis of a national Salesforce, and we had implemented Salesforce back then, 30 years ago. Sorry to say how old I am. Of implementing Salesforce in the original for a sales team. And so I thought, well, this is the same thing, right? This is about looking at a large volume of potential clients and starting to qualify and all the things you need to do. Eleanor, and I'm speaking for Eleanor, in parallel, she had a Salesforce experience, and she also saw the CRM model really fit what we wanted to do, not only just identifying the clients, but also in case management and actual serving the client. So we both came to, we need a tool. We know we need something like a CRM. We both said we know Salesforce has such a strong social conscience in how they want to do their business. And so that's how we said, well, we need a tool. Let's reach out to Salesforce. And so that was actually the how did we get here? The how it then became a real partnership of Salesforce wanting to really be involved in supporting behavioral health population, Salesforce really wanting to be a part of a community that raises up the folks in the community, became such a nice partnership. I remember talking to Ben Wu and saying, look, we actually can't tell that you're in a different organization. We feel like you're all part of the same organization. We wouldn't be able to separate a Salesforce employee from a Pacific Clinics employee. It was such a nice match, in terms of people and the passion and the commitment to do what we wanted to do.
Just some other, context and just the complexities around this. So for the last few decades, we've been doing business a certain way. And so Jason has referred them here as our legacy business. So that is contracting with the counties. In the state of California, they carve out services for what they call your moderate severe population. So those that need more than just, your 50-minute traditional mental health setting. They need a whole lot more. That has been our business for decades. And so we've built our infrastructure around that business. And so we're pretty efficient with running that business. However, with the transformation, we now are dealing with a very different payer source, multiple payer source. In fact, one of our strategic goals was to diversify our funding stream because we were so dependent on the counties. And so by doing so, we knew that we needed to be able to deal with the complexities of all these different funders. So you do have that one layer of, regulations and needing that flexibility in the system to be able to do that. A lot of the EHRs today, as is, that support our business line are really tailored around what Jason calls our legacy system. So again, we needed that flexibility. Jason also talked about that population health. So the doors were pretty controlled. We knew we would have certain referrals. That was not an aspect of business that we needed to be concerned about. In this new phase or in this new world, we needed to be concerned about that. So, marketing, that was another process that we weren't familiar with. And then learning about Social Studio and Pardot, those are all things that were new to us. Again, different regs, you bring that down to then different payer requirements, different data that needed to be collected, how we collect that data and how that data then moves between programs. At the end of the day, though, the need to be able to bill the payer to get reimbursed for services was also a need, and they all have different requirements and processes around that. And then we also wanted to do program evaluation to measure the effectiveness of our program. So there are a lot of different things that we needed to do, and we had a single tool to be able to do all that, and that single tool was not sufficient for us. And is not sufficient for us. But let me kind of give you an example of if we didn't have Salesforce, what this would mean for us. We now have a program, it's called Enhanced Care Management, where the health plan gives us thousands of names every month, and they may or may not be the same names. And so in the past, what would happen is they would give us the names in an Excel spreadsheet, or at least we would get it, into an Excel spreadsheet. And then you would have to sort through the Excel spreadsheet to see if they're already in our system because they wouldn't flag if they're new. So we would have to then go open up our EHR to see if they're there. And if they're not there, then have our team reach out to them, and if they're there, then don't reach out to them because they're our clients. So every month we had to go through that process, and that took 80 hours. That means half the month gone with just sorting Excel spreadsheets.
That's bananas. Okay, was there at least like a keystone match, for example, like social security number, or was it like free text entry? Like I enter my name Ben Wu, but then I entered it Benjamin Wu another time, and like now all of a sudden it doesn't match. You have to like cross validate.
Well, our EHR doesn't have an API, so you can't even do that. Yep.
Oh, dang. This is important. I want people to know the technical challenge in front of us because one of the big challenges I know from working with city, state, municipalities, they're all on like kind of different systems. And they've certainly patched it at different places. All the data payloads are kind of different. And if you're telling me all this data is coming in differently in different payloads, so that means you can't do, like you just said, use no cross-reference matching. You can't even run Excel VLOOKUP because it's just data is entered in differently. So you have to do data transformation and just do lookup. Then you also mentioned payer or like coding and payments. And then if all those systems are different, you can almost guarantee all their payment systems are different, which means all of their billing requirements are different. So if I'm billing county one, it's going to be one way, billing county two, it's another way. And if you don't have a system for any of that, it's just straight manpower. And for a nonprofit, that's expensive.
Absolutely. Yep. I mean, we do double entry. I mean, if you want to talk about needing to cut your G&A, fancy, huh, Jason? I got it. You need to cut your G&A, but you need to also get paid. So, other short of hiring people, technology is a solution.
Yeah, and I would say it's not just the nature of a nonprofit does not allow you to invest in your infrastructure, right? The nature of nonprofits is its mission, right? And there's so much passion and so much energy with limited resources that technology doesn't get the right amount of time and effort to support the mission. So we recognize that we have to leverage technology in the entire agency to be able to increase our reach in our service. And I've told our leadership team this, we can guarantee with putting technology, enabling technology into this very large behavioral health agency, that we can free up hours of our clinicians' time so that they don't have to be doing double entry, they don't have to be writing notes, they don't have to be dealing with taking all of their time to do the administrative work, but free that up, and then you have the time to go see your client and your customer. We understand that that's what technology in a nonprofit will do for us. We have to be able to do it right. You have to have the big strategic plan. You have to have the right partners like Salesforce, the right tools, to go do this. So I would say to you, Eleanor, in business development was a key aspect to say, look, we can start doing it here. We can start modeling it. We can start an incubator here. But at the end of the day, right, the success models of putting it in play then allows us to basically then put it into the whole agency. And so that's where we are, right? We're not just looking to put it into one or two new programs. We're really looking to enable technology into the whole agency to support the mission.
I mean, that makes total sense. The more things you can automate, simplify, the more time and resource as you have already stated so eloquently, you can put towards providing care. And I think that's the hard part for people to understand about nonprofit health organizations is so much of their time is dedicated to non-care. Like that's what's insane. Like most of their time is spent to non-care, which is crazy. And when I think about what you just described, the technical deficit that was in place, there's the challenges in place to you. I also want to frame up for our audience, if you've ever worked at a private tech company or a private company that might have enough R&D budget to have developers and engineers on the side, I call it on the bench or on the sideline, but like working on exploratory project, you have to deliver to a P&L, but at the same time, you're building something for the future, so it takes time. And nonprofits just don't have that type of runway in that arena. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, so Jason or Eleanor, give us an idea, is software has long been promised to like solve all these problems, but really software is just a tool, right? And so tools work in the practitioner's hands, right? I always use the carpentry example. If you give me a hammer, you will not get cabinets back. But if you give a skilled carpenter a hammer, they'll bring you back cabinets. And so that's also a challenge of software is that if you don't have the right practitioner on your side, you mentioned earlier the marketing tools, the social tools, data tools, flow building tools, like those are all nice, but at the end of the day, someone has to build it. Someone had to put it together. What was that like? Did Pacific Clinics already have people that were versed in this? Did you have to get educated? Or was that kind of like you learned as you went through Legends of Low Code, and then now that skill is starting to be like, I guess, multiplied or cultivated inside the organization? Give our audience an idea of where you were in terms of technical skill.
Most of the employees in this organization are clinicians, and some of them have gone up the ranks because, they're really good clinicians. And I've been fortunate to go up the ranks as well. But I'm not an IT, and I shouldn't be talking about IT, but people will say, that ship has sailed. And so for me, it was literally going to different conferences looking for the solution, and then pairing up with somebody who can help talk me through, some of the different solutions. So Jason was one partner. We have a Salesforce implementation partner in all of this. But what Legends of Low Code has done is help us see what we don't know, right, as potentials. And I think
Mm,
that's so critical, which is why we're having like a large number of our team go to Dreamforce, because it's not just because it's a fun Salesforce conference, although I hear it is. I've never been.
I've been. It's pretty busy.
Just a bit, right? But for me, it was seeing all the different solutions. So you don't even know what to ask for until you can see something, right, as a potential
Correct.
solution. So that's from our side, what needs to happen. And I think that needs to happen to our cross-functional groups. So not just our clinicians who are doing the work, our partners in finance, our partners in IT. And I think, we're in this transition phase to say, okay, what is it that we need? But right now we've got great partners who are helping us through this transition, so it doesn't take 20 years to implement, but that we have great partners who are also teaching us along the way, so that when we're done, or when we get to a certain stage, we'll know what skill sets to bring in, so what people to bring in, what skills they need to come into place, because it may or may not be our current team, or what do we need to do with our current team to help them develop their skills to meet the new demands. So those are kind of the questions that I think we're answering right now, but it's not all in-house. You need partners in this. And like Jason said, the partners that we have right now, we don't even see them as external, partners in all of this. They are so integrated in our thinking and our thoughts, and just, how we envision all of this, that I think, that is probably the secret ingredient to our success, is that they share in our mission, and they're true business partners. Jason calls them business partners rather than just vendors. And I think there is a difference in that. Again, people that will walk with us along the way. Jason, am I fired after this?
So I will say to you, right, our agency is about the clinicians. And so the clinicians want to do what their passion is, which is to serve the clients. Eleanor's secret sauce was to say, look, you need the tools. She wasn't talking about brand new tools. She was just saying today someone can use their phone and get a schedule and then automatically make an appointment to get service. We don't do that. How do we do that? So what she's able to do as a clinician was say, I need these things and how do we get them? And so, your question was, do we have the right resources? How do we get there? We're learning, as Eleanor said, she said it exactly right. We're learning what we need. The beauty about low code, it's like any of the tools that allow you to say, look, you don't have to be a programmer. You can configure, you can write reports. Well, low code is so much more powerful than that, right? And so now in the support groups, in the IT groups, I'm talking to the head of IT. Once we put these applications in place, what type of in-house support do you need to continue to maintain and actually evolve the application, which low code is designed to do, versus going out and hire a consultant to help you do it, right? So we are learning and we're putting in places the type of supports we need to continue to not just maintain, but to evolve the applications, because I think the one constant in business is change. We constantly have to be able to work with change and evolve. So I think the answer is we're learning. We're relying on Salesforce, we're relying on Provisio, their partner. We're using internal resources, and we're learning what we need and how to put it in place.
Listen, it's exciting to hear directly from you because I've been in the tech game for a while, although I don't currently build technology anymore. But I remember when the first, they weren't called low code then, but when the first like WYSIWYG builders were coming about, there were so many promises of what it could potentially be. And of course, low code has evolved significantly since then. So when I hear the fact that your organization, the Pacific Clinics, that you're seeing an opportunity to invest, build on low code without having expertise, right? Like meaning you might need some outside consulting, but you don't have to necessarily be like experts in tools like it used to be to build the solutions that you possibly need. I think that's refreshing to hear because there's definitely been a mismatch. I think there's been a long mismatch between what vendors have promised and what is actually possible. So to hear you on the front lines actually doing it, pretty darn exciting. There's a famous quote when it comes to technology and implementation. Arthur C. Clarke says, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. For yourselves, as you saw the Trailblazers building applications for you or process improvements for you, was there ever a moment where you're like, what just happened? Like, this is amazing. This is insane. Has totally helped me. I'd love to hear your perspective. Was there a moment where you realized, like, wow, our business or has changed or my time has been changed? I know I'm inherently selfish. So when I see someone do something that takes off a lot of pain work on my plate, I'm like, yes, this is amazing. Eleanor, your head's already nodding. So jump in there. What did you see where you're like, this is like magic?
Well, it was funny because when I threw in the wrencher to say, they now automation was great, but we need validation. And in my head, in my world, it was like, okay, this would literally take years to do. So how will they do it in this time that we have? Because they're still expected to do it. But they did, they addressed it. And going through Legends of Loco, the taping was pretty surreal. I mean, I'm watching them pull things together. They're asking me questions. It's great. And then as they did their presentation, that's when I thought, oh my gosh, oh my goodness. I mean, that was magical for me. That was just mind blowing. It was phenomenal. It was breathtaking. There were things in there that I just thought, I know this story. It's years. That's why I said, hopefully it doesn't take 20 years. That is not a joke. They did it. They responded to it. And that's exactly what we need. We've always, anytime a change would come, we would much chagrin go, oh, okay, can we see if they really want that? Do they really want that? Can we not do that? Every single time. And we work like I said, in a number of counties, and each county has their own rule. Even though in one state, each county has their own rule. We've resisted change because it's just so difficult on us, and our infrastructure is not designed to be able to make changes at the whim just like that. But with low code, you can. Okay, so I didn't like a design that way. Not only did I get one design, I got 3 options for the same request. And so just being able to change at the whim, that is such a huge part for organizations like us that have to, and regulators don't realize what it means. They think it's just a simple thing. It might be the right thing to do for, the consumers, for them to have better access to services, whatever the care that might be. But implications for organizations like us to make that change is huge. And it's not just on the clinician, it's a ripple effect throughout the organization. So to have low-code to be able to change pretty easily is just amazing.
Jason, I didn't know if you had a moment where you're like, wow, this is amazing. This is going to fundamentally transform the way we operate.
I will tell you, when she cried, those were tears of joy. Okay. What was really amazing to me was the 15-30 minutes that the teams had. That's all they had to understand the business requirements. I mean, we sit in meetings for hours, multiple meetings, to come up with requirements, right, to find a solution. They had a 15-20 minute debrief by Eleanor, and then they came up with a solution. And it wasn't even 2 days, because one of the days was all of the other things they had to do. So their real programming and product was maybe a day. That was incredible. The thing that I really, really like, it comes up so much in our business when we look at our service and the multiple languages and trying to find folks that can speak multiple languages, especially in the Bay Area. That translation feature that one of the teams put in, that was like a magic moment. I was thinking, we need that in every single app we do from now on,
I mean, it makes sense. You're serving so many communities. It's just not possible to even begin to staff somebody that speaks every language you're going to encounter. It's not reasonable. You need something to translate it. That's awesome. The thing I keep hearing, which I love to hear, is, when we work with nonprofits or have nonprofit people on the show, it's always mission first, right? That's why they choose to do what they do. No one gets into nonprofit because they want to solve these headache problems between counties, municipalities, and cities. Like, that's not the reason why anyone gets into it. So to actually hear from people on the front lines, actually seeing this, and the fact that, Eleanor, you actually cried because you just realized how much pain had been pulled out of your life. And that's fantastic, because that allows the org to do what it's set to do, which is provide critical health services, mental health services to underserved populations. Paperwork was never your dream.
No.
Well, I can say that. I feel confident to say that you never dreamt about doing paperwork.
No. Much less Excel spreadsheets.
That's the biggest problem with Excel is like it is everywhere. Like you can't escape it. I guess you need more low code everywhere to escape Excel. But I was picturing your pain as you described it. I was like, oh my goodness, this is
And we're
this is
talking
not
about
good.
columns and columns that's past the ZZ. And whatever variable that is
Yeah,
past ZZ.
I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. I know you've also been working on like an Excel sheet where the thing crashed and didn't keep your changes. I know 100% that happened to you. We know for those of you that are listening, Jason and Eleanor kind of walked us through what they experienced on Legends of Low Code. If you haven't got a chance to check it out, go check it out. It's on Salesforce Plus right now. And a quick refresher for anyone who missed the top of the show, Legends of Low Code is a television show where the Salesforce Trailblazers, who are good at building applications and services on the Salesforce platform, they got to meet with a bunch of nonprofits, a handful of nonprofits who, as Eleanor described, each nonprofit only sat down with them for a very limited time, kind of revealing the requirements, the problems. Like, this is the problem, this is the scope, this is the challenge, this is what I'd like to see a solution. And these teams were challenged with just a little bit of time to try to solve that problem. Go check it out if you like what you heard. If you're curious about Pacific Clinics, it is available. Their website is at pacificclinics.org. Jason, Eleanor, I want to say thank you for joining us. Thanks for sharing all the services that you do. Thanks for sharing the problem that you've now solved. We're glad to have you on the show. It was awesome hearing your story.
Thanks, Albert.
IT Visionaries is brought to us by Salesforce Platform and Dreamforce 2022. Catch the news and insights coming out of Dreamforce this year for free on Salesforce Plus. Just visit salesforce.com/plus. Content will start rolling today, September 20th.